Homesteads and Homeschools is part of the Liberty Hippie Podcast Network. If you like what we do, be sure to check out This Week in Liberpods, Peace Freaks, Cannabis Heals Me, and Free Market's Green Earth. We're living proof that libertarian doesn't mean washed up Republican.
Howdy doody. What's up? What's poppin'? What's crackin'? Welcome back to Homesteads and Homeschools. I'm your host, the Liberty Hippie, here with you for week number 81, huh? Might actually be, I don't know. I think it's week 81. It's episode number 81, which means you can find the show notes for today at homesteadsandhomeschools.com/081. My guest today is, Mr. John Foster. He's on to talk about a little program he created, and when I say little, it's not that little, called Middle School MBA. And we talk about what that is. And I'll give you a real quick little taste, and then you get right into it. Middle School MBA is a curriculum program set up to help homeschool parents, small groups, teach children about economics. And we're not talking about, modern monetary theory necessarily. We're talking more the Austrian side of economics. So it is something that was needed. And John saw that hole and filled it. And we get into it. And it's a good story. It's a good listen. And if you have a group of kids, you're homeschooling, economics is one of those things. It's important. It's important for them to get a good foundation and to start building those entrepreneurial branches. So I encourage you guys to definitely check it out. I'll put all the links and everything in the show notes. But right now, let's get into it. Let's go plant those liberty seeds with my guest, Mr. John Foster. All right, so today my guest is Mr. John Foster. I picked him up listening to one of Tom Wood's plugs at the beginning of his show or at the end of his show, and I think you're guest number 2 for that, John. So welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on today.
No, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, no problem. And I always want because he's a good resource to sometimes has some of the good homeschool type products and interesting people out there. So it's always scroll through those and look. And I found you, and it looked very encouraging. So we'll get into what you have. But before we do, I'm kind of curious, what did you do for school growing up? Because this is more, what you have is more kind of directed at homeschool. Were you homeschooled? Did you homeschool your kids or anything like that?
No, I wasn't. I went to public schools and some private schools as a kid, and then I went to a public college, LSU, and did an engineering degree and an MBA there. And then I went out into the world and worked in industry and did that sort of stuff, production and supervision, management. And then got into kind of the corporate side and did some business management and M&A stuff. And finally, they got tired of me and gave me the boot. And it's actually, they were terrific. They were super terrific. It was a great career, and they couldn't have been nicer to me when I left. And then the middle school MBA.
So you
went to work.
So what was your degree in college? Did you say engineering and?
Yeah, it was chemical engineering.
Okay. All right. So where did and you just kind of got into the business side of the world through different jobs that led you there? Or did you go?
It's even weirder than that. All this started with economics when I was about 5. And I can remember being outside playing in the dirt with a stick wondering why doesn't the king just tell everybody to make twice as much stuff, and then we'd all be twice as rich? And somehow I knew that didn't seem right, but I couldn't figure out why that wasn't right. And it wasn't really until I was about 35 that I actually had those answers in a really clear way. And all along the way, I thought about economics. I studied economics. I worked in the economics department when I was in grad school. I mean, today you can tune into Tom Woods and get the right answers, but back then, he wasn't available, and so you really had to struggle to get these answers.
Okay. So I imagine, well, where did you end up finding the answers, or how did you find kind of the answers that you were looking for that you eventually made sense to you?
Yeah, so I went through most of the schools, the classical, the neoclassicals, the Keynesians, the public choice, you name it, and they all had something to offer in one way or the other, but they were all they all had contradictions and problems, and it wasn't until I stumbled across the Austrian school that I was like, oh, this actually all adds up. The Austrian approach is very rigorous, and the conclusions are much more modest than what you would get, for instance, with the neoclassicals. The Austrians don't claim to be able to predict what GDP is going to be 2 quarters from now, to 2 decimal places. They
Right.
they say that that's just not doable. But what you can predict is things like you know that demand curves slope downward, and just from that you can reach a lot of very profound conclusions about what's possible and what's not possible. Whereas some of these schools that get lost in the weeds of decimal points and stuff end up concluding that that you can raise the minimum wage and increase employment.
Yeah.
Because so
Yeah.
that's how I ended up with with the Austrian school, and then as it turns out, the Austrian structure is much more clear than what, say, the neoclassicals use. If you look at the circular flow diagram, it's not wrong in essence, but it's sort of misleading because it makes you think that everything is just going in a circle and that money is driving it. That's sort of the impetus from it. Whereas with the classical model, which the Austrians use, you see that it's a matter of taking natural resources and converting them into things we want, and that goes along with a capital structure and a price structure, and so all those things are actually nice and clean and simple, and you can teach that to little kids, and that's what we started doing.
Okay. So how soon after you kind of figured things out did you part ways with your job, or whatever it was that you parted ways with back there?
Well, I had actually I started teaching as a volunteer, and my company was really great about that. They would, they supported community service, and they would give you time to do that sort of thing. And so I taught for many years as a volunteer in schools, and I developed this program during that time, and I had started building the tools that I always wanted to have. Instead of me scratching ugly pictures on the blackboard and saying, imagine this is actually this or that, I started building them as something really good that in a digital format. And so when I separated with my company, I already had like one foot in that boat, sort of, and we just put it into overdrive.
Nice. That's seems this way. It kind of works. You can't just. I guess you can just jump ship and start new, but it's a little riskier than.
It's definitely much tougher, but because what happens is it takes longer than you ever thought. It's always, there are always bumps that you didn't expect, and so you need either like a spouse that's supporting part of the game, or something like that to just jump off into space. I don't really recommend that.
Yeah, I can agree. So you were teaching what did that look like? Were you just going into classes and like who were you teaching, or what specifically were you teaching?
Yeah, so I was teaching. I actually started with junior achievement. It's a national program. A lot of people know junior achievement, and right away I just thought, this could be a lot better, and so immediately I started changing things and adding things, and before long I just had an economics class, a business and economics class that I was teaching, and that grew into middle school MBA.
Nice. So did you start with, was it your own to start with, or was it something that like junior achievement had and you're kind of worked with that framework and then just blew it up and did your own thing? Or
no, it like I added pieces to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak ill of junior achievement, but I mean, it didn't take long to replace it all, and
Right, yeah.
and so as I added things, I jettisoned their stuff, and originally when I was going to do this middle school MBA, I said, there's a lot of free stuff out there. There are YouTube videos. There's Fee has got some great stuff. The St. Louis Fed has some stuff. There's a lot of stuff. And I said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to curate all these different things and put it into a format, and then just point you from one place to another. Okay, go over here and you'll get a lesson on supply and demand. Go over here and you'll get a lesson on opportunity cost. But as I worked on it, it just doesn't work that way, because the different places you might go aren't consistent in their terminology. They're not consistent, and so that plan fell apart. Like, okay, that's not going to work. And so then I started. I just built everything myself. In the end, there was no substitute for just stick building this thing bit by bit.
Good deal. That's impressive. That is a lot of work, when you have something of a skeleton you can add to and take away from, and it helps when start from the ground can be tough, to say the least.
The problem is with the skeleton is that it's very poor. The way people teach economics hasn't changed for 100 years. Back in the 1920s and 30s, as Keynesianism was becoming popular in the circular flow diagram, economics developed this very. Today people think, well, if you're not a rocket scientist or a math whiz, you just can't leave economics alone, and that's because it's the way they started teaching it was so removed from reality and so difficult to grasp, and so I completely threw that structure away, and we started with just a clean slate and said, what's the best way to get this stuff across to young kids, and just went from there. So there really wasn't a skeleton worth keeping.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I think it's true. I think with like really anything these days, but the math field and economics is one of those where, like, if you're not a quote expert, you start looking at these papers and these pages with formulas and percentages and decimal place and all this stuff, and it can be scary. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of, you take your high school econ class and you're done with it, and you just listen to the guy on the TV say what tell us what's going on or whatever, and you just accept it for what it is. And not a lot of people seem to question it. I think I don't know, but
yeah, I think you're right about that.
So you got going this. So how long has this been going on, the middle school MBA? How long have you had this program together?
Well, for 3 years, we've actually had it online and selling to schools. I did it. I taught it myself, prior to that. And the real trick was to be able to hand this stuff off to a teacher who has no background in business and economics and have them. That was really one of my big concerns as to whether that will work. I mean, what happens if Billy asks question X and but as it turns out, these teachers do it better than I do because they're actual teachers and they have teaching skills and they know every kid in the class, so they know how to push their buttons. They know what's going to go easy. They know where they have to slow down. And so it's been extremely gratifying to see teachers take this curriculum and do it better than I do it. That's just, I can't tell you how nice that is.
That's cool. So it's, because I know you it's there for homeschool kids, and you've been moving it to the public schools as well.
It's for homeschool groups. Okay, it's for any group. It's for a classroom.
Right.
It's not. A lot of people have said, "Hey, I want it for my single homeschool kid," and unfortunately, business and economics is about interactions between people. And so what we try to do is create those interactions with our activities in the class, and then after they've experienced a given thing, then we say, okay, here's what happened, and here's what that means, and here's the theory behind it, and then we attach the tags to it. Instead of giving a definition, they experience it first, and then we tell them what that was. And so in order to create some of those experiences, you need more than one kid. You need to do a negotiation. We have 2 kids or more negotiating. Sometimes it's one-on-one, sometimes it's one-on-two, sometimes it's 2-on-2. There's always a timekeeper, that's another kid. And there's usually a few kids that are actually judging the negotiation and looking for various tactics to be used and counter tactics and that kind of stuff. And so it's to create that, you kind of need about 4 kids minimum to make it all happen. And at some point, we'll probably try to come up with a just homeschool for one curriculum, but today we're not there. So today we're homeschool groups and regular schools.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember looking on the website for the group lesson. I think it was a minimum of 5, I think was the number on there. But with all the homeschool co-ops that are out there, it's not that hard to find five other homeschool kids that would be down for that. So.
Absolutely. And we have a number of people that do exactly that. They say, "Yeah, I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to invite 4 neighbor kids over." And they do it all the time. Sure. And we have had homeschools who said, I just want to take it and learn it with my child. And they've done that and said it was terrific and they loved it, and it all worked. So that does happen. And if they're homeschoolers who are interested in that, we actually call that an off-label use.
Okay.
And so we give a discount for that because it's not exactly how it's designed and they have to do a little more work. So, I mean, if somebody's interested, by all means, contact me and we'll work something out.
So within that, this is kind of designed for groups. What ages are we looking at? I mean, can I give this to my 4-year-old or?
Not yet. We're like ages 11 and up. We did a class of 5th graders, 10 years old, last year, and they did great. That's the youngest we've ever done. So, we say 6th grade is kind of the place to start, anywhere 6 through 12. Like to leave a little leeway,
Yeah. Wait, so, for the older kids, the older ages there, is it a different curriculum? Is it just, are you able to go more in depth? Is there, what's the difference there? Or is it the teacher that is able to get into it more? How does that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing is, so nothing here is dumbed down. This is college level stuff. really graduate level stuff. You can go get a BA in economics and never hear about price structure or capital structure, but we're doing this stuff with these young kids. So it's not that it's too young for a high schooler. um, as you move older, then we rely on the teacher to set the pace and to manage the classroom. We're really blended education in the most real sense, in that we don't go to the student. We don't. Our students aren't looking at a laptop. The teacher projects the software on the wall, usually with a student running the software, and then uses that as a teaching tool. And so we enhance the teacher's ability. We don't replace the teacher, and we don't try to bypass the teacher. The teacher is really critical for what we do. And and so as the class is different, if you have a class of incredibly smart fifth graders like last year, then the teacher just zooms through at a normal pace. If you've got a class of seventh graders that for whatever reason aren't quite there, the teacher goes a little slower. If you have seniors, you zoom even faster. So it's a matter of just pacing it to whatever the kids' abilities are. But there's the material is in no way young. The jokes and the humor might be a little young, and so the teacher might want to play with that some. But no, it works. It's fine for high schoolers.
Good deal. Yeah, because it can be such a dense topic, and at the same time, it's not in that, like, it makes a whole lot of sense, and it's not like crazy difficult to comprehend. And you start putting things together, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, So I can see how that spreads.
Yeah, we try to start each concept with something super simple. Typically some business idea, like buy low, sell high. Everybody gets that. And then we take that and step by step, we bring it up to the abstraction of that concept, which will be economics, right? So we'll go from a negotiation to the laws of supply and demand. And so when kids think about price discovery, they've discovered prices themselves. They understand what that's about, and they understand that the laws of supply and the law of demand, that those are just describing human responses, normal human behavior that they've experienced themselves, right? And so it's even though it's when you look at a couple of when you look at a chart with two lines crossing, and this is quantity and this is price, and it's dry and it's tough to internalize. But when you do it the way we do it, they get it and they have it, and they never lose it.
So, question about teachers, right? Like you said that the teachers did do a better job than you did. But like, what about these teachers that don't know anything, right? I've never heard of economics beyond my 11th grade high school class. So, are there materials that you give them to kind of peruse and get a feel for, or how do they fall in? They just use the same sort of curriculum the students do?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's essentially the latter. We've what we say is we've found a better cognitive path to go from zero to a deep understanding of economics. And so whether you're a child or a teacher, as a teacher, you just travel the path a little faster. And we do have very detailed lesson plans with each lesson that and that goes into more depth than the lesson does. Should the teacher want to have more background in case Billy asks that special question, but as a rule, we've built it so that children can go from zero to deep understanding, and the teacher just does the same thing. And it's so typically we have our jumpstart video, which is 15 minutes, and that's to tell a new teacher, okay, here's how the software works, here's how we introduce these concepts to little kids, and here's where you're going to end up. Here's all the theoretical framework you need. And so that's 15 minutes. Maybe they watch that twice, and then maybe they noodle around for a little while. So you might spend an hour up front getting your arms around it, and then maybe less than half an hour with each lesson, just going for the most part, the teacher walks through the lesson and goes, I got it. I'm ready to go teach it. They don't even have to look at the lesson plan. But should they have some doubts or questions, they can go to the lesson plan and get more details. It's really, the trick is making it so simple to do to begin with. That's the real trick.
It sounds like you've figured it out pretty well. So another thing on the website, I know you mentioned that it's how do you phrase it? Business and entrepreneurship, right? Is that all? Excuse me. Is that all part of the economics side of things, or is there extra steps to that, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So, the classical movement has this great saying, which is all learning is connected. They reject this idea of making a whole bunch of different subjects that don't interact with one another. And in this case, they're right on the money, by the way. They're totally right about that. In the current case here, business is a subset of economics, right? Economics grew out of, it started with Aristotle looking around and going, these people are using money and exchanging it for things, and there's all this commerce happening. What are the rules for this? And so economics is just taking business and figuring out what are the rules for business. And so business is part of economics, and entrepreneurship is part of business. Entrepreneurship is the beginning stages of a business, right? It's starting the business up, and so that's a subset of business. So we work them all together. We have kids do business activities where they're building parts and selling them, and then they build a profit and loss sheet for those, for what they did to reflect their work. And in doing that, they learn how P&Ls work, and how the purpose of profit and how profit and prices direct a business. And then later in the class, they actually take a 5-year P&L and they use it to pitch a company to the rest of the class as investors. And so, these are kids that couldn't spell P&L 3 weeks ago, right? and now they've built one, and then they take a pro forma P&L, and you can't believe how it's cruel how little instructions we give them. We just hand them the P&L and say, here you go, this is your company, come back tomorrow and pitch this to the class and see if they'll invest in it. And they do that. They process all that, and they pitch it, and then the class decides whether or not to invest their own money in this company that's just been pitched. And so there's the entrepreneurial aspect brought in, but it's just a piece of the overall subject.
Yeah. It's seems to all intertwined, right? You can't really separate any of it out. But anyway, all right. I don't know. I think I'm done. I don't know much more to ask you. Anything else that we missed that you want to get out there?
I tell you, you've done great. You've obviously dug into it, and you've hit all the key points of does the teacher need to be trained? How does the curriculum work? The beautiful thing is it can just drop in anywhere. It's all software. It's all contained in the package. And so, you can just go to the website, purchase it across the website, download the stuff, get your credentials, and, be teaching tomorrow. It's
awesome. Well, I will, why don't you tell us where we can find it? Where do we go for all your stuff?
So you can go to middleschoolmba.com. That's everything is there. if we talked before about single homeschoolers, if there's anything you want to discuss, you can reach me at john@middleschoolmba.com. And there you go. You can find us easily.
Good deal. I'll put that stuff in the show notes there, and encourage people to check it out. It's economics is definitely one of those subjects that like I said earlier, it seems scary, right?
Absolutely.
It seems daunting,
Absolutely.
but just give them like little bits, like especially with homeschooled kids that are home, and you have the time to sit down and do little projects with them. A kid wants to start a bakery, he wants to sell chickens, all these things. Well, like sit down, let's figure it out. Like, how does this all work? Like just because you make all these cookies doesn't mean anybody wants to buy them. Doesn't all this stuff that goes into it. And I think homeschoolers are primed for this sort of material.
I think so. And one of the things that's really strong about our curriculum is that we give them the whole framework. When by the time we talk about supply and demand, we've already talked about the structure of an economy and what the pieces of it are. So they understand how every time we go into depth on a given concept, they know exactly where that fits in the overall structure. They have a context to put it in.
Yeah.
And I think that's super helpful rather than trying to hold 10 different ideas in your head and juggle them. And I guess the other thing I should mention is that we also have 2 lessons that we give away for free. That's supply and demand and scarcity. And so if you're doing economics at all, everybody covers those topics, and you might as well do it the best way possible. So come get those 2 free lessons.
For sure. I'll make sure that link is in there. So, all right, John. Well, I appreciate your time and appreciate the curriculum there, the service.
Thank you, Ben. It's really been great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I encourage you all to go take a look. Go find the website and go give it a look. And get yourself signed up. Get a couple kids together and do it, because it's necessary and it's needed. And your kids will thank you when they have a better outlook. I don't know what the word is. Anyway, they'll thank you. So, guys, I think that's all for that. Go subscribe on whatever podcatcher you're listening to. Go write a review on iTunes. Leave 4 stars, 5 stars. Tell me what you had for breakfast. Tell me what you did this weekend. Whatever it may be. Go leave a review, because that helps. And you can always go to Patreon, patreon.com/thelibertyhippie. And there's some things in there. And I guess that's about all for now, guys. I encourage you to enjoy life, enjoy what it has for you. So get out there, sow those seeds of liberty. We can all reap sheaves of freedom together.
Dream.